Yes.
That's like.
Did you get to?
Yeah, Darcy looked out.
Yes.
It was, otherwise you're giving the presentation.
Darcy's like, I don't know that, but. As intended, he was. Well, that's good.
I have to take a check to make sure it's sharp.
Slowly.
Oh, that happens sometimes.
You just look.
I'm just gonna sit here for a second.
I took those. I iPad.
Yeah.
Think about how to plug it in.
Oh, yeah.
To actually let it look at that.
Well, this. But I mean, so much, yeah, probably.
You want This one holds down my paper perfectly fine.
It does. I know, I couldn't see it. I couldn't, at the time I wouldn't get stuff. Yeah, this always works.
That's what we're going for. So that.
Yeah, make sure it fits.
Right, yeah.
What is?
I got ready. Go inside.
Yeah.
You don't know me. I just. Trying to forewarn you. Not like that is. Listen. You know. Just.
No, that's okay. Where?
6 o'clock must be north. You stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And this is really all and one nation under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. Wait,
Mayor Miller,
here.
Councilmembers Updike. Here. Bauer,
Here.
Frankel. Here. Robinson.
Here. All right, with that, we will entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Motion by Councilmember Udvig, do we have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Councilmember Robinson, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Before we get to the consent agenda, I think we'll throw it over to Kate just to explain some things about the change orders.
Yes, Mayor and Council, so there was a question on the PCOs, which are your item 4F. In regards to the City Hall Fire Station, these are changes that came about due to the state plumbing permit review. They are separated between labor and material. They have to do with additional floor drains, some of our pressure zone assemblies, some piping. So what has happened is with the state plumbing changing at the first of the year and some updates that the state did, they brought it back to our project. And these were the recommendations that came out of the November, December review. So they have been vetted by our architect Brunton. They've been through install, and these are the prices that are coming forward. With that, I can answer questions.
Sarah? Rob?
I don't have any questions.
Kirsten? And Kevin?
I have a question. Should the architect or within Brent, should they have perceived any of these changes, or would the state have given any idea? I mean, from December to January, I mean, they looked at this stuff before. I know things change and whatnot, but aren't they supposed to be apprised of what's? I know they can't see the future, but I mean, square footage requires X amount of drains, whether it's a scupper drain on a roof or floor drain on the floor. None of that can be not assumed is the right word, but these guys do this every day.
So Mayor and Council, that correct. I think there is a question as to how much of this maybe could have been seen ahead of time. Some of this, is my understanding, came through the last legislative session and some of the commercial changes that were made with plumbing, and there were quite a few energy changes that were made. Whether Brunton knew all of these or anticipated all of these, I guess I can't speak on their behalf, but these were the pieces that came out of that permit from the drawings that were provided to the state.
Can we be assured that they all definitely were because of our new rules put in place January 1 of 24? Or they were, how can we be assured they weren't old stuff that just forgot that?
Without having the state probably comment on that, I don't know the plumbing codes, so that would be something we would have to go back to the state to verify. With their system right now, we could try, but definitely, if it takes as long as their permit, that's a good 30-90 days out. So
No, I understand. So, and then Darcy, we're about 50,000 in, 50 some odd thousand in on our change orders so far. I know the last meeting we brought up, or the meeting before, we were in 30-some thousand with labor, materials, etc.
We're looking fine right now. We, there's a lot of pieces left there to put in the puzzle, but it's looking fine right now.
Okay.
I think it was just over 50 after the, that was right.
we're at about 58,
50,000.
correct.
Okay. All right, I guess just I wish there was some way to pinpoint it, whether it was, a new ruling or an old ruling. And I mean, it's easy to say, and I'm not saying anybody their skullduggery afoot, but it's easy to say that because of the new ruling. I mean, they know what, in the fire area, they had to put some shower drains in and whatnot. That's a pretty common situation. And as far as square footage, so much drainage, the size of the drain, I was reading through some of the change orders of vent piping changing from 2 inches to 3 inch. Again, some of that stuff, I have 20 years of mechanical background as a buyer side, but I've been in some exposure to it, and some of it just seems odd to me that it would, it's coming up after the fact, and some of the stuff seems too simple to be like, oops. So I don't know, I put a call into Deb at Stall, and it was earlier this afternoon, so she does the unsure, but, and when she does call me back, I will pursue that with her, if there's any way to look over, because we're gonna get more change orders, there's gonna be other questions and concerns, and I just wanna make sure it's the right thing, and again, I don't think they're just skullduggery, but you know, it's our money, we gotta keep track of it, so. That's all, Mayor.
While we're on the consent, before we ask the crew if we have any other questions regarding consent at all. All right, with that, we'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Bauer. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Frecklow. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll go to our first meeting open to the public. Do we have anybody that would like to speak? Anybody from the audience? Nothing? All right. I guess with that, we will move on to the public hearing. Just open
No, but Mayor and Council, tonight before you is the public hearing for the tax abatement for the Vista Prairie project. With us tonight is Nick from Ellers to complete the presentation.
Mayor and council members, Nick Gandon, Bellers and Associates, financial advisors to the city of St. Francis. And we're here to discuss an application that was made to the city to provide a tax abatement for the Vista Prairie development. There's various topics I plan to go over. Certainly at the conclusion of this presentation, there will be a public hearing whether or not to consider adopting a tax abatement for the project. So the Vista Prairie currently is under control and developing a 17-acre piece of property within the city. Right now, it's an undeveloped value generates $9,933 in property taxes. And slated for 2024, that amount is inclusive of all the local taxing jurisdictions. The city is about half as far as what it receives from that amount. Proposal is to develop the site into a 200,000 square foot residential facility with a a care center, providing a various levels of independent living as well as assisted memory care and care suites within that development. The application also states that they are planning to create 47 new jobs that would be retained within the city. And they do have space within that development, potentially for future expansion should things go well in the long-term future. The development is anticipated to cost just under $48 million. And next slide. In order to make that happen and to make the rendering that is shown on the site plan here on the screen, they will be needing a form of public assistance in the form of a tax abatement from the city. This is the current site plan that does include all of the various entitlements that have been worked out in the agreement to develop the site of the city. Next slide. The overall budget is anticipated to be 100% privately financed with the assistance of the city to unlock some of the debt necessary to complete the funding of the project. So they're anticipating through the form of a bond issue, a first mortgage of $31 million, providing about 65% of the cost. They have a secondary form of financing through PACE to finance about $7.5 million, and then just over $9 million worth of equity put in to complete the overall $48 million worth of funding. They have also, with their application, provided market study to justify the developments and rents, but the anticipated revenues from operating the facility do not initially provide enough nor an adequate rate of return in order to complete this project. And so they're not able to provide assurances to the banks that they've got enough operating revenue to make their debt payments in order to provide over $38 million worth of debt for this project. And so they are, in order to fill that gap, requesting a tax abatement from the city to help unlock the potential revenue available to make those payments. So what is a tax abatement? Next slide. Under Chapter 469, the statutes allow cities, counties, and school districts to potentially abate or allocate their share of all or a portion of the property taxes they derive from a specific piece of property and use them for a project that delivers a public benefit. So this is not an exemption from paying taxes, rather it's the opposite. They have to actually pay taxes into the city that the city would collect. And then the city can use those funds to allocate them towards a qualifying project. The council must find that the abatement is in the public interest. And some of the reasons why it can be, according to the statute, is for a project that increases or preserves the local tax base, provides employment, and another is that it would provide public infrastructure and also services for residents. All of which we believe that this project would in some way facilitate. In order to adopt abatement, a public hearing must be held to allow the public to speak on the matter, and then the abatement is actually formalized through the adoption of an abatement resolution that states why the particular project or financing is in the public interest, identifies the property that's going to be abated, and sets a cap on the total amount that could be abated. Next slide. Statute allows for up to 20 years for any abatement, and the maximum amount that could be derived is basically by applying the local levies tax rate from each jurisdiction and multiplying it times the value of the property, and you get how much money potentially could be derived from the taxes on that site. There is a limit in place for the sum of all abatements that the city could entertain, and that is based on the size of the entire tax base. So the city cannot abate over 10% of its tax base in any given year. Right now, if the city of St. Francis were to actually go to that limit, it would be abating $959,000 every single year. The maximum amount that we estimate on Vista Prairie is about $200,000 or 22% of that limitation. So this by itself will not put the city near the maximum limit. Next slide. When we looked at the application, we did have a discussion with the local assessors, as well as looking at the local levy rates that are in place, the type of development that was proposed to determine how much potential taxes would be derived from developing this property. And we also looked at the financial analysis of the project and how the debt underwriting was being analyzed. This slide here shows a snapshot of if a property were to develop within the city that looked exactly like the proposed development, we anticipate it would have a $35 million assessed value. And that value would equate to about $450,000 in local property taxes, of which the city's share from the increase in that value is $213,000. That's basically, if you skip everything in between and get to the bottom line. The city's share of the taxes from this newly developed property potentially would be $213,000. And this is what potentially could be used to help finance the project. In order to actually unlock the abatement, I just want to point out that means that the developer actually has to obtain financing for the project, has to build it, has to operate it, and has to pay its taxes in order for that revenue stream to be available. So there's quite a bit of lifting that needs to be done on the private side in order to make this go. But if that were to happen, this project potentially would generate this amount of tax revenue, which the city can then remit to help finance the project. The request is that the city would commit to levying those taxes and remitting that portion of the tax receipts to help pay for the financing. Next slide. Our next step was to evaluate the actual project, the proposed revenues, operating expenses, the budget for the project, and to determine whether or not that need was actually valid. And I will say that after looking over the pro formas, that we did identify that there is a gap in the financing. It was not able to support that level of investment, both in terms of equity and in terms of the debt that is necessary to complete that project. Short term on this slide is the calculation used. We anticipate that after the project stabilizes, it's operated, rooms are full, it is ready to go and occupied. It would generate potentially net operating income of $3.5 million, of which the majority of that would have to go into making debt payments, which would leave about $470,000 worth of cash flow to provide some form of return on the equity that's being put in that project. That return on equity is about 5%. I don't know about you and your investments today, but you can get a treasury bill for about 5% that's going to yield that same level of return. and have none of the risk associated with developing this property. So I would definitely stand that there is a gap in the financing. These are below market returns. And we think that the request is justified, but we don't think 20 years is necessary for this project. Next slide. So what would happen is if the council did move forward and choose to adopt this abatement, there would be a financing agreement that would be put in place. That would be an agreement between the city of St. Francis and the developer that would specify the terms of the abatement. That agreement specifies that they are going to begin construction in 2024, and they would have until the end of 26 in order to complete that construction. They would have to prove out and actually finance the entire project privately, so no out-of-pocket being funded from the city of St. Francis. But if they did that and they occupied and operated the facility, the city would agree to abating the property taxes that it receives from the property for a period of up to 10 years. We also included in there some provisions that the abatement potentially could terminate earlier than the 10 years if there was a property sale to a third party, so they decide to sell it off to someone else, or if they actually, after 5 years, if they were able to demonstrate that the amount of revenue that the project is generating on its own is sufficient to refinance under the terms of the underwriting and refinancing at that time. So if they're able to do that, they're able to satisfy all the tests that we put in place in the analysis today, then there would be no more need for the city's abatement, and then it could be tailored down or terminated early. But potentially, if this project is not self-sufficient at that point in time, the cap on the abatement would still be 10 years at a maximum, which would equate to about 1.9 million when you add up all of those years together. Next slide. So as far as the council's consideration, this project does provide job creation. It does provide new tax base within the community, of which the property taxpayers, even though the city property taxpayers won't benefit right away, but the school district, the county, and all of those entities and their taxpayers, which I realize are the same, are going to benefit directly. Those taxes will be utilized to fund operations of those entities. It also will be providing a new local amenity and new housing options within the community. All of those things satisfy the statutory criteria for what would be considered for an abatement. The agreement requires no upfront costs to be burdened by the city, but you would potentially abate up to 1.9 million of property taxes over the potential 10-year maximum term. So we're here to hold a public hearing, and then afterwards there is a resolution that was included in your packet to consider approving establishing a tax abatement for up to a 10-year period and entering into a financing agreement with the developer. Be happy to address any questions of the council as well as any comments from the public that may arise in the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we'll open the public hearing, I think, to start with at 6:08. Anybody that would like to speak about the abatement? That will close the public hearing at 6:19. All right, questions from the council? Kevin, we'll start with you.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Question, who determines the audit at a 5-year mark and or a 7-year mark to see if it's self-sufficient and sustaining on its own?
The financing agreement specifies that they have to provide that information to the city at that point in time and evaluate again whether or not they need the continued abatement. So in order to actually keep it open, they have to provide the financial information to justify it.
That can be written in our agreements. We can do a 5-year mark or a 7-year mark.
It's in the agreement.
It is. Can we add an additional one if it's a 5-year? Can we have a 7-year if the 5 wasn't sufficient? I mean, if it's not burdensome to the owners, of course. I mean, I'm just looking at ahead. If they have a chance to shut it down or, turn the tap off sooner, that's all I'm looking at.
So the agreement is written at today, negotiated with the developer to include a check at the 5-year mark to make sure that they have to provide that information to keep it open. If we were going to change that agreement, we'd have to go back and talk and make sure it fits within their financing and works for the developer as well.
Okay. Is it unheard of to do something like that? I mean, otherwise, at the 5-year mark, it's done and says, no, we still need the sufficient help and whatnot. So we have another 5 years to just keep rolling with no, another look, so to speak. Unless we put it in there.
Correct. We actually think it's a good thing to just have one. Many agreements don't have any. They just commit to what you think is necessary for the project up front. But we thought it necessary, given the circumstance that there is potential that they could be self-sufficient, to include a check. It's called a look back provision.
Right,
And I certainly recommend adopting that look back provision.
okay. Again, 5 years, I like that idea a lot. Again, to let it go for another 5 years, if it's not needed, if we look at 7 years and we see that they can float on their own, we're gonna save ourselves 3 years of abatement. If, you know, that's all I'm saying. If it's possible to put that in there again, without being a burden to the owner, it's just another look back, just another milestone, so to speak. That's all I was getting at. I just didn't wanna wait another 5 years and wait to see how we do.
It's not in there as it is. We would have to go back and
Okay.
make sure it was okay and didn't disrupt their finance. But it certainly, if the council wants to amend that, we.
That's, I mean, would it be burdensome, then you say disrupt the financing, would it be, is it a lot of additional cost or financial burden on either party to put a second verbiage in there for a 7-year fee?
Well, everything is a negotiation, so I don't want to close the door,
Sure,
but putting that kind of a mechanism in place doesn't give a lot of security to the bank who's providing that mortgage or that financing,
mhm,
that revenue will be there to make their debt payments. So it, in some ways, undermines. The reason we use that 5-year mark in particular is because they will have to refinance at that point in time. They might not have to go and refinance immediately again.
sure,
So if they refinance it in 5 years, and we have this check before they refinance, we can ensure that they're still gonna be able to make the property make its debt payments. But if we then pull it back 2 years later, a bank might not lend them in the first place if they
okay,
don't have that determination that the abatement's gonna survive the length of time that they're lending the money, if that makes sense. So
I understand,
it can be problematic. We just have not gone through that specific discussion. So I don't know.
sure, but the financial lender, the true money lenders get the luxury of looking at it every year, they can see the books every year, where the city won't have that luxury.
Well, they won't lend the money in the first place if they don't see that the project is gonna deliver some minimum threshold.
Okay, well, it's not a deal breaker for me, it was just an inquiry, and I understand. Thank you, that's all, Mayor.
Crystal?
The only question I had, and I think I asked it before, I don't have my notes with me, you may not be the one to answer this, but when you're talking about those 47, 48-ish jobs, what kind of wages are we talking there? Are they entry-level jobs, or are they going to be like potentially the employer of choice for the St. Francis area? I mean, what are we looking at there? Because when we talk about bringing jobs in, that's all well and good, but if it's not a wage that folks can support their families with, then it's not really effective. It's not really bringing in what we need in this community or driving folks to move to this community. So that's what I'm kind of curious about, is where are we at with the wages, the benefit, you know, and those kind of things. Is it for this employer? Do we know that?
I know the applicant is here in the room. And, but I also know that the city has a policy in terms of its applications for financial assistance, and it sets a minimum threshold of $14.50 an hour. And the applicant said that all of those jobs will exceed that minimum policy, but I think they can probably answer your question in a much better way.
Thank you.
Jim Bettendorf, President and CEO of Disparate Communities. Thank you for having us here again, and thank you for considering our request. Just to answer the question, our average wage those 47 jobs, and then a weighted average of about $23 an hour. The low end of that would probably be, currently we're employing dietary aides, housekeepers at about $16 an hour. Our nurses will be making considerably more than that. Nurse wages today are anywhere from 60 to 75,000 for an RN, and we'll have a few RNs on the staff. And then the administrative person that's there will probably make somewhere around 100 to 120, depending on 2 years from now what it looks like. So, but we perform in about.
Thank you. Question.
My only question is, does the tax abatement start in 24 or does it start in 26? For 10 years.
It will start in 2026, so it start after the project is actually creating new value in the community. And I don't think I actually specified this, that initial, I know it's a smaller amount, $9,000. The way the abatement is set up is that it's in the amount in excess of that it generates. So you'll still receive the $4,500 that you receive from the property today to fund operations of the city. That won't be included with the abatement. It's only when they actually improve the value of the property that the abatement will start.
Thank you. Sarah?
That question was the one with Crystal, so.
I don't think I have any, well, I guess, as far as the abatement starts in 26, goes for 10 years, and I think help for me as well as the public too, to understand the difference, between the TIF and the abatement, which I do understand a little bit, but you can probably give me better information to help me understand it better.
The two, you know, if you could go back a few slides, there was a breakdown of the taxes. There you go, in the gray box. Thank you. You know, essentially, TIF and abatement in this sense are designed in the same way, but abatement is the city and its share of the taxes only, whereas TIF is that the ability to actually capture all of the local property taxes from the county, the school district, and even any special districts like a watershed or the metro levies that are applied to property. And so it can produce more bang for the buck, if you will, in terms of the annual funding that it provides, but then it also requires that you're utilizing all those resources at once. Here with an abatement, as I alluded to, you know, the city would be the loan participant, so the city's property tax benefit that would be created from developing a new piece of property, you're basically deferring that for a period of time. But the county and the school district, this will be included in their tax base right away once it's developed, and the project will be contributing towards their levies immediately. So, you know, it's just I guess a lesser form, but it's really designed the same way.
I don't think I have any other questions for you.
Can I say one thing there?
Go ahead.
Just for the public's knowledge, this isn't coming to us for the first time ever. We started talking about this, Kate, like 8 months ago. But actually, the project's 2 years in the making of coming to this point. But as far as the tax abatement, we've had some work sessions to talk amongst ourselves. We've had regular meetings when this gentleman's been here before, as well as the owners come and presented their need for such a thing. So this isn't just coming tonight. We take it very seriously, and it's a big number, but it's a big project. It's the biggest thing that's come to St. Francis in a long time. So it's not a novelty or something, some new toy that we just got to see tonight. We've been talking about it. We dissected it at length for over many months here. So just so the public's aware. Thank you.
I think too, just to comment, we talked about all the financing right now, the current climate of the financing situation with the developments in general of this type of magnitude, that there's a lot of issues with financing coming in without this, which is not a great thing. Do you have anything else? Rob?
No.
All right, with that, I'll make sure there's nothing else I wanted to say. I have a few things on the tip of my tongue. I think it's a huge project. One of the things I did want to make sure the public's aware of as well is that we don't take it lightly, like Kevin said too. I mean, we have to factor in things as far as yes, we are getting the $4,500, but they are also gonna be potentially a high percentage of users of our emergency services as well in theory. So we do have to kind of weigh those things as well. We're not completely ignorant on those things. We do weigh all the factors in and whether or not it could benefit us. So with that, I would entertain a motion, and Dave, please step in and correct me if, entertain a motion to approve the tax abatement agreement with Vista Prairie Communities, subject to the attorney approval as to form. Dates or something there.
I believe there's a resolution for you as well. The resolution 2024. What's that first page?
That's here for me. Thanks, Ken. I'd entertain a motion to approve resolution 2024-07, granting a property tax abatement for certain property in the city of St. Francis. We
I'll
have
make that motion.
motion by Councilmember Crutchlow. We have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Bauer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to old business. Item A, 2023 total revisions, second reading.
Yes, Mayor and Council, before you tonight is the second reading for ordinance 325 and ordinance 326. Both of these ordinance amendments relate to amendments in the zoning and subdivision codes. These are the housekeeping amendments that we bring before you annually. So the first reading took place in January, and both of these ordinances were approved at that point. And so tonight is the second reading for both ordinances, as well as the summary resolutions that are reported tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Sarah?
I have no questions on this.
Rob?
I have no questions.
Crystal? And Kevin?
I have no question, Mayor.
I have no questions, given it's the second reading as well. With that, we will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 325, modifying divisions 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9 in the zoning code.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Craig, second by Councilmember Adamczyk. It's an ordinance, we'll do roll call.
Mayor Miller,
Aye.
Councilmembers Robinson,
Aye.
Frecklow,
Aye.
Bauer,
Aye.
Edvig. Aye.
Carried. And we'll move on to ordinance 326. Oh, resolution, you're right. See, when they're tied together like that, I always figure out, that's not your fault, that's my fault. So I was overthinking it last time. We'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution 2024-05, authorizing summary interpretation of ordinance 325. Thank you. Motion by Councilmember Edvig. We have a second.
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Councilmember Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to 326, modifying chapter 11 subdivisions in the city code. I don't think we had any questions on that either, so we'll entertain a motion to approve.
Make the motion, Mayor.
Motion by Councilmember Robinson. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Bauer. And again, ordinance will roll.
Councilmembers Edvig,
Aye.
Frecklow, Bauer,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Mayor Miller.
Aye. And we will now entertain a motion to approve resolution 2024-06, authorizing summary publication of ordinance 326.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Motion by Councilmember Robinson. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Bauer. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item B, educational facility zoning ordinance amendment, first reading.
Mayor and Council, a bit before you is an ordinance amendment request related to an educational facility. This would be a text amendment to the zoning code to allow educational facilities within the B1 zoning district. City Council did review this request at the January 16th meeting. At that point, Council requested some additional information, both from staff and the applicant, and they also wished to make sure that the entire council was present in order to make this decision. And so the application was tabled until this evening. So I'll just provide a quick little background here, so we can get back into it. So the ordinance amendment request would apply to the entire B1 district. There is a specific site that would be requested as a follow-up to this, which is the vacant learning center building right along Bridge Street. That would be proposed to be a public educational facility, which would be used for the school district's Transition 15 program. So again, the B1 district, just put the intent of that district up there. The goal for the city is to determine if an educational facility use is appropriate in that district. So the B1 Central Business District is a district that is intended for the establishment of a mix of uses. It's really intended for that kind of downtown walkable feel. So in the intent itself, there are considerations for pedestrian and bicycle access. There's also mention of design standards to make sure that those buildings along Bridge Street do provide the kind of atmosphere that the city is looking for in that corridor. So just to recap some of the council discussion that occurred at the last meeting, there were a number of different points made. One was the idea of weighing the opportunity to fill one of the vacant buildings along Bridge Street with the use, weighing that with the desire for an active commercial use along the corridor as it's been planned in the city's planning documents. There was some discussion about potential partnership opportunities between the students in the T15 program and the businesses along Bridge Street. Some additional detail as far as what that looks like would need to be required with the interim use permit if this amendment were to go through. Another point that was made was that the use as it stands today does not meet all of the B1 district standards. We spent some time talking about that 70% requirement, making sure that on the ground floor frontage on Bridge Street, there is an active use for at least 70% of that building. With a public educational facility, obviously that creates some challenges for that standard. So some council members did voice some concerns about, again, if this amendment were to go through, we get to that interim use permit phase, and if that's approved with conditions, how do we make sure that those conditions are met and achieved, and what happens if they're not? And then the last point that was made, some discussion at the last meeting, was again relating to this idea that this is an amendment that while there is a specific site that we're also kind of talking about on the side, the actual zoning code amendment request would apply to all the properties in the B1 district. And so public educational facility would be required to align both with the zoning code, so all the requirements for the B1 district. It would also be required to align with the future land use guidance that we have in the city's comprehensive plan. And so in staff's opinion, an educational facility is consistent with public land use guidance. And so I'll flip to this screen here. The black outline shows the B1 district. You can see in red there is the site that would be proposed as part of the future IUP, if this were to be approved. And really what this is trying to show is that there are few properties within the B1 district that are currently guided for public use. That's not to say someone couldn't come in and request that, but that would go through another public hearing and public review process through the planning commission and the council. But as it stands today, you obviously see the block where the new City Hall fire station is going to be, and then the other block that is in that blue color, that public color, 3 of those 5 properties would be included as part of the use that would come forward as a result of this amendment. So tonight we did include in your packets both kind of motions and findings for approval, as well as motions and findings for denial, depending on how council discusses this evening and what other questions they have. We did provide some potential findings of fact. There may be others that come up as part of the discussion, but we wanted to provide you some findings that may be useful based on the discussion we had in January. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, we'll start with Kristen.
I mean, I don't necessarily have any question. I talked about this a little bit last month, and I'm all in favor of it. It fits with what we're trying to do down there. I know that we have huge retail and that kind of thing, that they have offered a coffee shop and a little merch section. And it also will partner with local businesses down there and help folks get on the job training that they need. So I don't have any questions for you. I just think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Rob.
So my biggest question was, how does this pertain to all of the B1 district? And I really like the picture with the multicolors and the blue. So I'm leaning towards more approval, because there really isn't anywhere else that can be accomplish such a thing, was my biggest question was where to go with the school, just, you know, moving to all the B1 districts and just opening parts of schools. But as you can see, city fire station is in one spot, the elementary school is right there, and I believe the other blue one down on the bottom is probably the church. Is that a fair statement? Yeah, and the other one's a high school, if you look at it on the right-hand side of the circle, so. Like I said, there's not a lot of room for the idea of the school just taking over the entire B1 district, so. I'm kind of leaning towards, this is an opportunity to kind of work with the school and, you know, extend the olive branch a little bit.
Sarah?
Yeah, I did watch the meeting last time, so I couldn't be here. I don't have a lot of concern about that, about the changing. There's not a lot of room. I don't think the district is gonna try to take over. I don't think that's their intent at all. And looking at it, it is filling one of the many vacant buildings along that corridor. And I think this is one way that we can work with the district in a way that's helpful to them, and it's also being a help for us. I do hope that we can see that retail space become, we can get that coffee shop, or we can get that space. I think this is probably a good space for the kids. I understand that the state kind of throws stuff at us and we don't get a lot of say in that.
You, Kevin?
Well, I'm gonna be the contrarian on this time around. Originally, I was for it. I feel concerned that there's no actual guarantees. I know what it's gonna do, and I know what it will fulfill the need. But again, our business side is so small, we already put in the comp plan what we wanna do and how we wanna do it. I think there should be an opportunity for business to be in that spot. So I'm gonna be the dissenter, nothing against the schools or wanting to help the kids or, the school district has a lot of properties already here in town. I know they're cramped for space, and Lord knows we've all been burdened by unfunded mandates from the state. But in this situation, I wanna see it stay the same. I don't think it can meet the public access portion down the road if we were to make a change, and, again, that's about it.
Thank you. I have to side with Kevin on this one as well. I think, meeting the requirements and approving something on a promise or a goal that they may have puts us in a bind as a city as well. Especially the type of facility that it was going to be, in the future, say if they didn't go forward with it, we'd be stuck either pulling it from them, which would not look good, or putting ourselves in a different situation. I don't have anything against school or education, but I don't think that changing our zoning code for this purpose is the right thing to do at this time. With that, I would, entertain a motion, either to approve or deny the educational facility zoning ordinance amendment first reading. Ordinance 327, amending the zoning code to allow educational facilities in the B1 district. Do you have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion to
Rezone it.
approve.
Yeah, approve it, thanks.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Cracklow. Do we have a second? Hearing no second, I have never had that.
Then the motion dies for lack of a second. The council can entertain another motion.
I guess we'll entertain a motion to deny.
Deny.
We'll entertain a motion to deny at this point the rezoning. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mayor.
Motion by Councilmember Robinson, I will second. And it's a roll call, it's ordinance.
Mayor Bauer,
Aye.
Councilmembers Robinson,
Aye.
Crackwell,
No,
Bauer,
No.
Ludwig.
Let's say another failed motion, right?
The motion to, deny the application.
Right.
As is what passed. I know.
It's weird.
It's a little bit
I know you need 4-1 to pass an ordinance.
correct.
We have 3-2, so I'm just kind of confused on the wording, if we're approving to deny it. Would it be a failed motion as part of that? That's right.
But what you're also, putting into the record is the findings for the denial.
Okay,
And that's why we have the motion, so we have the findings for the record.
got it. All right.
I got a question. And I would hope we kind of did that before all the motions, but, my question is, do we just leave it open to maybe change down the road rather than, killing it completely? Or do they have the opportunity to come back?
We can come back, I would think, at any meeting, anytime, right? Technically.
Mayor and Council, the city can consider a similar request, a year after something's been done.
Really confused because the motion in the second didn't pass.
With findings. The second, yeah, it's. The ordinances, I get it.
So there was a motion to approve. There was no second for it. So the motion to approve failed for lack of a second. There's a motion to deny the amendment request. There's a motion and second to deny the amendment request. That amendment request to deny was, I know it's a little weird, approved. So the council was in favor of the denial.
with a 3-2 vote, I apologize.
Yeah, I thought.
Yeah,
There
there was 3
We need
I don't see how it's.
Yeah, there was 3 names. Yes, so I was confused on how that works. And I haven't made a special case you are the
For the ordinance to pass, at any point you need 4.
Right.
So anything else is
So
a denial.
Okay.
But we just had the findings in there.
So, to pass a motion, pass an ordinance. 4-1 needs to be had to pass an ordinance or 5. To deny an ordinance, you would still think you need the majority or something, which is, I think, where the confusion is coming.
Okay. Jenny, what was the?
The first one failed because it wasn't second.
Correct.
I get that.
The motion to deny ordinance 327 had 3 nays and 2 ayes.
Yeah.
Crackwell, Bauer, Ludwig, nay. Robinson, Mulebauer, aye. To deny ordinance 327.
Okay, then that motion does not pass.
Correct.
But again, then we're just at level.
Right.
Don't have enough to go over. We didn't have enough for denial.
Right.
It operates as a denial.
Okay. And then does that year still stipulate on that as well? Okay. Still confusing a little bit, I get it, but it's still confusing. So we'll move on to new business, item A, City Hall Fire Station, Fire and Security.
Council Mayor, before you tonight is the City Hall Fire Station and Security System quotes. We received 2 costs. Electro Watchman is the company that we currently have all of our gates, City Hall, Fire, Public Works, and all of our facilities through. They came in with a full bid. I am happy to answer any questions. I guess to clarify, again, a question that I was asked earlier, this is not part of our general construction. This is above and beyond our construction, and there'll be a few of these items. We've had it with our furniture, we have it with our security. We've had it with our audio that are above and beyond that construction, and that's where we're getting the multiple costs and bringing them separately outside of the stall process and ground process. Having it done at the same time as the construction is advised because they will be able to pull the wires for all the low voltage water walls and ceiling circuit. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll start with Rob.
I don't really have any questions. I like the no bids. And I like the, doing it pre-form prior to, getting everything closed up and then be like, hey, costs are gonna be extremely higher than that. So that's really all I have.
Thank you, Kevin.
I'm curious, Kate and or Chief, did we have a discussion about what they're watching early on before construction about what we were gonna carry over in or use? And I thought we chose them anyway because of their familiarity with the rest of our buildings. Wasn't there some discussion about that already?
Yep, so Mayor and Council, we had, we wanted to just roll them into the new building, but because of what they provided and they weren't a sole proprietor, we had to get the two costs.
Oh.
So it's a formality, but then with the second costs, we did see that they were quite a bit.
Okay,
It was our intent to use them, but because we had to show that cost.
okay, and that's the right way to do business for sure. Also, this is, or these amounts, this amount is, or is not included in our current construction budget.
These amounts are not in our current construction budget. These are above and beyond what we have in contract with stall.
Okay,
This is not part of the stall process.
it's not, and why wouldn't it be? Just my own curiosity, why didn't we think, why wasn't there allowance for this before?
Mayor and Council, they're much like our audio, these are kind of above and beyond your building structure. So we've got the fiber that we use through Zayo, we've got our audio, we've got our dispatch antenna, there's pieces that are outside of their avenue, this being one of them, so.
And we had ancillary money set aside on paper for things like this? Or-
Correct, Mayor and Council, we've got line item budgeted for all.
That's okay, that's satisfying. Cool.
Yep.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. Thanks, Mayor.
I didn't have any other questions. I remember talking about this earlier.
No questions from me. So I would entertain a motion to accept the bid from Electro Watchman for fire and security. We have a motion.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Motion by Councilmember Robinson. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Udvig. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Item B, MOU between City of St. Francis and LEL 319.
Mayor and Council, before you tonight is an MOA between the LELS 319 Police Officers Union and the city in regards to vacation and severance language that changed in our personnel policy to change their contractual language. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Rob?
I hate union contracts because, they're set for specific times. And if we make changes with our non-union people, then that is a change that needs to happen through contractions with, our union groups. So with that, myself, this would be something for me that would come up, during their contract negotiations. They can ask for it during negotiations, but it's something that I don't think the city should arbitrarily just get into an MOU, for. There's a lot of different, incentives here that the city can use during, union negotiations.
I think it's wonderful that the city wants to bring the LEOS contract up to what everybody else is getting, the non-union folks, so I don't have any questions on it, I just. It's good for the city to be equitable whether they're union or non-union, and I think it's great that we are here to do so.
Question for Kate, then, is this basically just to bring us up to level playing field with other agencies and whatnot, again, to keep us competitive in the marketplace and cheap as well? Is this basically, and is also any of this dovetailing with the new, family leave and the whole big bowl of stuff that came down from the state, is any of that intermingled with this as well?
So Mayor and Council, this is to bring, so with LELS, we have 2 units. We have our police officers 319, and we also have 411. 411 is still working on a similar agreement. Then we were also looking at needs in regards to potential changes for the ESSL. So that is still under review with the attorneys with LELS. And then what this is doing is just bringing up these items in relation to where our personnel policy was changed. Any improvement we make there's a benefit to our retention and retaining. But this step is to equalize with the personnel policy.
If we didn't do this, does Rob's comments have any merit, or and not just John Smith's comments have any merit? No, he brought up an interesting point that I'm not privy to that kind of stuff, but
Mayor and Council, so this year we will begin the union negotiations with both of our LELS teams. In union negotiations, everything is negotiable.
okay. I guess I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Sarah? You posed an interesting point, but I don't think there's necessarily an issue bringing everybody up to par. Could you argue certain things? Yeah, I'm getting them. Even a level playing field, so to speak, isn't necessarily a bad thing. Don't like the E word you use, but equality, that's just me. But getting there, I mean, that's the same principle as far as keeping everybody equal and treated the same. Kind of my opinion on it. So with that, we entertain a motion to accept the MOU.
To approve the MOU between the city of St. Francis and LELS 319 police officers as presented.
Dave said, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Edvig, do we have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Who wants it?
You can have it.
Kevin can have it. All right, second by Councilmember Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion carries 4-1. We move on to C, work session request.
Mayor and Council, before you tonight is a request for a work session. I've proposed a couple dates. We can start with those.
Yeah, it was.
So Monday, February 26th, or March 11th.
What works better for either one? Rob?
Either one works for me.
Kevin?
Either one works for me as well. Can I ask what's on the menu?
Mayor Council, so far we have some personnel questions.
Okay.
So. You do it for right.
Makes sense.
Do we have a preference?
Sooner the better. Make you more.
February,
Sure.
all right.
February 26th at 6 p.m. at City Hall Community Center.
Oh, not both of them?
No, I'm just asking for one.
Oh.
Ben, would you like to exercise your option?
I think, yeah, the February 26th works better for me, and I think my schedule, we have to keep it at 6, I'm barely squeezed in here. Mondays are getting to be,
We need a motion to set that.
Thank you.
With that, we will go on to second meeting open to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak? No reports from staff, council member reports, Rob.
I don't have anything to report. Let's get out and, enjoy the sunshine. Mow our grass. I'm loving it. After the snow was gone. Other than that, just be safe because I've seen more and more people because there is no snow out walking on the streets. So be careful.
Kristen?
I don't have anything to report, other than kind of the piggyback on what Rob said, apparently it's motorcycle season now.
Oh, yes.
Stuck up for them. I can't believe how many people are on cycles right now, so, but otherwise not.
Sarah?
I don't have to.
Kevin?
I think it reported that I attended the Las Vegas thing for the Chamber of Commerce, where was the success. During that evening, they had a slideshow presentation about what it takes to do Pioneer Days and, nuts and bolts and money and volunteers, et cetera, but they did, make some money on the evening. There was 113 people in attendance, and the chamber did a good job as far as putting it together and, got to network with some of the business owners in town and people, again, there's some people who came, put their money down and they belong to the chamber, but they're not in the city boundaries. So that's pretty cool. So that's all I have.
For my report, I went to the North County Fire Prevention Council, the J-Lake meeting. And I would just also like to advertise for February 20th is the Winning with Cops at Tasty Pizza. And I believe that goes from 4 to 6 on the 20th. So hope to see somebody else there on the 20th, February 20th.
Do you need volunteers to help with anything?
We all did some volunteers. Not necessarily need them, but it's cool.
On the 20th.
20th.
4 o'clock?
And if we do think there's more than 2 of us going, we might want to post that.
Thank you.
But yeah, I've been to a couple different events. This is pizza and bowling at the lane, so pretty cool. With that, I have nothing else to report. What's that? 4 to 6.
That's good.
Oh, yeah. I guess we'll let Kate make the announcement.
So our community development web is officially out on maternity leave for the next 12 weeks. So anything community development related, please give me a call.
You're so excited. Turn the phone.
I got it. So, yes, she had a beautiful little girl, Robin Page.
Congratulations if you're watching. I tell you, are you better?
She might be.
With that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll make a motion. Motion by Councilmember Bauer, do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Udvig, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, we adjourned at 7:03.